welcome to another edition of Meeting with the Manager. I'm Courtney Flynn, the city's Communications Director. Today, I will be interviewing our City Manager, Erik Tungate, regarding the hot topics affecting you and our city. So before we get to that, I would like to introduce you to Erik Tungate, our City Manager.
Hi, Courtney.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me on my show.
Thank you for letting me host your show. There's been a lot of things going on in the city over the last couple of months, and I wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you about some of the changes that residents may be seeing on their utility bills, seeing with the new Bird e-scooters in town, which is quite exciting, and also just talking about some upcoming projects that we have here in the city of Oak Park.
Sure.
So first, I would like to just talk to you a little bit about the utility bills and what residents can be expecting to see for the month of August and in the future throughout the year.
Well, so first of all, thank you so much for hosting my show, because I know it's not easy, but it is great to be on this side of things. So thank you. There has been so much change, and I think, one of the changes is that we haven't been doing this show as much as we otherwise would have, primarily because of the pandemic. So it's great to be back and doing this show now, giving people regular information as well. With regards to utility bills, so the very name utility bills is a change. And one of the things that I think is most important for our residents to understand is that we have done a multitude of different things over the last 5 years, really, in an attempt to try to make it as easy as we can for people to pay their bills, and then also to try to peel away some of the additional charges and things that, quite frankly, we've used to make sure our system is up and running effectively. It's also important to remember that we are a not-for-profit. We're government. So we're not making a profit on our water and sewer system. We're not, there's not this huge overhead where, we're banking all of this money. We are only allowed by law to charge what is necessary to operate the system. Now remember, we're buying our water from Detroit Water and Sewer, the Great Lakes Water Authority now, as it's called. And one of the things that we did just recently in this current fiscal year is we had to raise rates, the combined utility bill rate, by 6%. Now it's important here to remember that in the previous cycle, the previous fiscal year, we did not raise rates. We zeroed them out. So we ate all of those additional charges that the Great Lakes Water Authority passed on to us. And we did this because we knew a lot of people in our community were struggling. The pandemic has forced a lot of people in difficult situations. But the fact of the matter is, 6% is, I think, a pretty nominal rate considering what's going on, but it allows us to, make ends meet, upgrade the system, do the kinds of things that we need to do. Now, as far as the bill itself, one of the biggest changes that we've seen over the last couple of years is we've gone from a quarterly bill to a monthly bill. And we've done that as a complement to our ratepayers solely to make it easier to budget on a monthly budget. We've also had to, by a court order, as a matter of fact, implement our stormwater charge. And I should also mention that in the current fiscal year, our stormwater charge has been zeroed out. We have not increased the stormwater charge. We've leveled it out. That will remain consistent throughout the bill. And again, trying to make it more palatable for our residents, knowing what many of them are going through and what they've been through. Every year, we take part in a comprehensive study to see, sort of where our rates are in comparison to those communities around us. And as it so happens, we sit somewhere in the bottom, third of the communities that we compare ourselves to, and those are all the communities in the surrounding area. So we're not the highest, we're not the lowest, but we certainly have what we think is a full justification for a 6% increase in the current fiscal year.
You mentioned that we took away some of the fees for this budget. Can you talk a little bit about that, and then also just the importance of, again, maintaining our system and why the even 6% was necessary?
Yeah, and one of the main changes in the fees is we have adopted, and this is just as of a year ago now, we have adopted a 0-unit minimum usage. So, it used to be a 6-unit minimum usage years ago. Then it went to a 4-unit minimum. Then it went to 2. Then I went to 1, and now we're at 0. So we're going to stick with this, where if you do not use any water, and this may surprise some people, by the way, you will still actually be charged because there is still a carrying cost for the maintenance of the system, but you will not be charged for consumption with our new setup. So that is probably the most notable of the changes. So minimum users, minimum bill users, if you're one of the people using 2-3 units of water, well, this is going to affect you the most, so, and benefit you the most.
Very nice. Well, I know that you and the City Council have done a lot to try and help the residents of Oak Park, and I know something else that you guys are focusing on right now is our Elevate Oak Park project, which is looking to increase our parks and recreation opportunities in the city. We are in the middle of that study right now, and I was hoping you could kind of talk about where we're at now, what residents can expect to see in the coming months, and what the overall goal of the Elevate Oak Park project is.
The Elevate Oak Park program is by far and away the most comprehensive large program we've done in my decade plus here now. It is us acknowledging that we are a suburban bedroom community and that our residents demand a higher echelon of parks and recreation amenities. Let's be honest with ourselves, our community center is not fitting the bill right now. So this is as just one example. Our parks are great, but the amenities that are in our parks are not sufficient to meet the current demand. At least that's the way we feel. So we undertook a year-long study process, which we are just about to finish up. In that study, we hired a private consultant to guide us through this process of determining, working directly with our community, having oodles and oodles of community meetings, town hall events, where we could hear the public's input in terms of my neighborhood park, this is what I would like to see. And from all of this, our hope is to take a very concerted plan back to City Council and then potentially back to our residents and say, this is what we've come up with. We think this is going to help us carve out the future of parks and recreation in our community, and that may involve many things. There's many different aspects to it, and as I mentioned, a community center is probably the largest of those things, but that's something that we've got to pay for and figure out a financial methodology to pay for. So those are the things that will be happening in the days to come. But it is by far, and that includes the City Hall project, which back in 2013 we opened this new building. It's the most comprehensive thing we've done here in the last 10, 12 years, no doubt. But I'm very excited about it, and I want our residents to be very excited about it, because it really does represent a coming of age, if you will, for our community.
Well, I know that we've heard a lot of positive feedback on it through our communication channels as a city, and engagement opportunities, continue to exist, so they can come back and we can hear their ideas as we put out the proposed plans. I know one of the conversation pieces of the Elevate Oak Park project is a trail system, a potential trail system throughout the city, which is very exciting. I know public transportation and alternate modes of transportation are important to you and the City Council here, which is, I think, part of the reason why we brought birds to the city of Oak Park, not the birds that fly, but the birds that scoot. So if you could maybe talk a little bit about the e-scooter pilot program that we have here in Oak Park and what that means to residents and what you're hoping to see out of that.
Well, one of the things that, and this is the approach that we're taking. So while we recognize there's a multitude of people who are going to use, the Mogo bikes or the bird scooters for recreational purposes, and that's totally fine. We also have to recognize that those things, those modes of transportation for some, are the difference between getting to work on time and not. And those infill pieces, and for all above reasons, I really think this is the key to the future of our inner ring suburb here. And the numbers are really proving that out. Our Mogo ridership, at least in the suburban communities, is the highest in a couple of our stations, which actually I was kind of surprised by, very, very happy to see, but it also just proves that, and Mogo primarily being designated for commuter purposes, doesn't mean you can't use it for recreation, but it's primarily for commuter purposes. It really demonstrates that there's a need out there. And a lot of these, I think the phrase is the last mile or whatever it is, it's a lot of these smaller transportation things are seemingly unimportant, but they do fulfill those purposes, and those are very important purposes. So I'm very excited about it. I think it really brings a different dynamic to our community. Of course, the bird scooters, we're in a pilot phase right now for the next several months. We're going to see where things shake out, and if there are kinks, we're going to try to work those out. And ultimately City Council will decide if we keep them here or not. So, but one thing I want to make very clear to our residents is that the city does not operate the scooters. We are simply allowing Bird, is a private company, to operate them here in our community. And that's not to say that there might be other private companies like you see in Detroit or Ann Arbor or other places that do it later on.
So if someone were to have an issue with a bird, say it's parked in front of someone's home, which they're not supposed to do, or blocking a driveway, whether it's on a busy street such as in front of City Hall or someone's home, how would you suggest that they go about getting that problem fixed?
Well, there's a very firm process in place to have those issues. Now, we have to be very clear that if a Bird scooter is parked and blocking a pedestrian pathway on a sidewalk, the only way that Bird, the company who's monitoring these with GPS, is going to know to that definitiveness in that location is if somebody calls, emails, or reports it through the Bird app. And that's what we are asking to people to do. While we will take calls and forward them as necessary, we are not the provider. So of course for the city, we want to send you to the Bird app, website, whatever, to make those reports. Now once you make those reports, then Bird has a 2-hour time limit to remediate the issue, to get them out of the way. But honestly, if I'm walking down the sidewalk and I see one in the way, in the pathway, I'm just going to grab it and move it myself because I don't want someone to fall on it. So there's that part of it too. But as far as people parking in the easement in front of people's primary residence, that's something we don't want to see. Is it going to happen? Absolutely. We acknowledge that. But I don't want someone parking a scooter in my front yard. So we definitely don't want to see that, but at the same time, we want to keep our pedestrian pathways clear.
Very nice. Well, I'm excited to have Bird in our community. Have you had a chance to get on one yet?
I have not ridden one here in Oak Park, but I have in Detroit. So I personally love them, and my daughter loves them. So and I've done it solely for recreation purposes, but oh, it's just so much fun. It's awesome.
But she loves her own because you're not supposed to be on them unless you're
She
18
does.
or older, according to Bird.
Well, she has her own electric
Yes.
scooter, so she's, yeah. And please, by the way,
She's ahead
come
of
to
the
some
game.
of our community events where Bird, we've been given several helmets, and we'll be handing some of those out at some of these community events, and people can get a helmet from Bird for free. So I strongly encourage people to be like my daughter, who's safety conscious and wearing her helmet when she's on her electric scooter. So please be safe, wear a helmet.
Yes, be safe. But according to Bird, you have to be 18 years or older to
Yes.
ride theirs.
Yes.
But if you're younger and you have one at home,
Yes.
be safe.
Well, I think that goes back to just when people ask, why we've allowed them in the first place. Well, we don't have the right to not allow them. So if you have your own private, electric scooter, you're allowed to ride those now. So
Right.
This was just that we're allowing it on a wholesale basis to a company to come in and do it. So nothing's really changed except that, Bird has their own stationed around the city, and there'll be more to come too.
Very nice. So obviously there's a lot of new things happening in Oak Park. As we said at the State of the City earlier this summer, we are breaking a lot of new ground, and that very much is because of yourself, our city manager, and our city council, and the visions that you have for Oak Park, which I think leads into how you were recently awarded the Public Service Executive Official of the Year by the American Society for Public Administration. So congratulations to that,
Thank
first and
you.
foremost.
Thank you.
But if you could also kind of talk about just how you have come to this point to be acknowledged by such an organization. Obviously, you have done a lot for the city of Oak Park, and that is with the support of residents and the city council, but also because of your management skills, your vision, and how that has brought you here. And if you could talk about where you're also hoping that will bring Oak Park in the future.
Thank you, and I really appreciate that. I always go back to a couple of things, and this is something I've said since I've been here for the last decade. You see so many executive leaders in public service, but also in private business, who approach problem situations like, let's be honest, Oak Park, when, back in 2011 and 2012 had some budgetary issues, and their first reaction is to just cut the fat and, bring it down and figure it out. Now, frugality is always something that I'm looking forward to finding. But at the same time, for the first time in the city's history, during the same time that we were looking at every department trying to find cost savings, we also set the course for a plan to grow the tax base of the city. And 10 years later now, you're seeing projects like the one on 8 Mile, the Opus development, the new Forgotten Harvest headquarters, the 9 on 9 Mile, the 11 Mile commercial district taking off with 2 new breweries, etc. The new Kroger on Greenfield, the Planet Fitness that went in Parkwoods Plaza, etc. And you're seeing these things happening, and all of those things, and then new residents and new housing and things are growing the city's tax base. And we're getting back to where we were and getting, quite honestly, on more stable ground. But I come to it with that, set of priorities. You can't cut your way to prosperity. It doesn't work that way. Yes, you have to be, creative and find creative financial solutions, but you do have to grow as well. And that's what we've proven here in this city. And sometimes, in order to do that, you have to take projects on. You have to look for new ways to generate revenue and figure it out. And we've really demonstrated that. And then, I was born with this relentless gene. My parents, I was born and raised in a very, very small town, long way from here. And my parents had 4 boys. And one thing that they passed on to all 4 of us was just to never give up. And one thing I have never done in my life is given up. If we had doubters that we could turn this city around, the mayor and I joke all the time about this, but if we had doubters back in 2011 and 12 that we could turn it around, I don't blame them for being doubters because it looked like an uphill battle, but that just served as motivation for me, and it always has, and it always will, quite honestly. The more you doubt us, the more of it I'm going to prove to you that we're going to make this happen. And I think when you combine those various things and being blessed with a just excellent staff, yourself included, here at the city, it's a pretty uncommon, magical situation. I don't know many governments who are operating with those dynamics all going at the same time, but that's what we have here in Oak Park. And we're human, so we don't always agree on everything that gets proposed or everybody else's idea. But one thing we do agree on is that we are going to approach everything from a progressive point of view. We want, and I don't mean that in a partisan way, I mean progressive point of view, meaning we're going to undertake some projects. We're going to look at things from a project management perspective and see if we can get it done. And if we can't, we can't. But if there's a will to get it done, then there's a way. And that's how we approach everything, and that has so far worked out to our advantage across the board.
Well, I would agree that we have a wonderful team here in Oak Park, and I am happy to be a part of the team, and I see a lot of wonderful things happening here. Can you tell us what our residents should be most excited about between now and the end of the year, or what you're most looking forward to?
Well, by far and away, as I mentioned earlier, the Elevate Oak Park initiative for me personally is by far and away the most exciting thing. It's just, like I said, a re-examination of our parks and recreation facilities, parks, the amenities in the parks, etc. I just think that is going to be world-changing for this community. And really will set the tone for the next 50 years for this community. So that is by far and away the thing that excites me when I think about the future the most.
Final question. Will the Lions win the Super Bowl this season?
Well, so I've had this debate with many people. Growing up where I grew up, it was half Bears fans, half Lions fans. And for whatever reason, I chose the Lions fan path. And I've been regretting that for most of my life. But as I take a practical, sober look at the upcoming season, and I'm not drinking the Lions Kool-Aid here, like so many others are, I am predicting the Lions will win 7 games this season.
All right. We're going to have to come back in December, January, and see where that's at. So
let me add one thing to that. I'm predicting 7 wins. Now, if there are more than that and they go to the playoffs and win, I will be very happy, as will the 5 million other people who are their fans. So hopefully we can turn it around. But actually, it's funny because I was just saying the other day with regards to Detroit professional sports, I'm as optimistic about almost all 4 teams as I've ever been. I just think there's proper, maybe not the Tigers as much now, but there's the proper leadership in place to really get things done. So I could see Detroit being the city of champions maybe again soon.
Well, I hope so, and good leaders get things done. So thank you for taking time to be interviewed on your show today, and we look forward to doing the next one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.